Hello everyone. I came across this really strange object at the thrift store, but I liked the little label that someone added that said be true to yourself. It was only $2. It had this little drawer. It kind of looks like a can holder, but not quite. So I picked it up, one, because it was $2, two, because it had the be true to yourself label on that I thought was just kind of inspiring, and I really related to that quote there. So I thought I'm going to do something amazing with this. I'm going to make it into like a little art piece display kind of stand. Um, and I know you're not going to be able to replicate this project, but the reason I really wanted to make a video and show you guys what I did with this is really just to show you that when you come across things at the thrift store and you have no idea what they are, and they're a good price, it still might be a good idea to pick them up because you can turn them into something amazing. Like I said, I want to show you a couple different techniques that you could use doing this with other kind of unknown objects. There are definitely a lot of weird things at the thrift store, broken things at the thrift store, and that was the whole reason behind this video, is just to show you guys different techniques that maybe can inspire you to do something similar. I'm taking all the labels off here, and I tried to get most of them off, but I ended up actually covering this in some tissue paper. And so I have it Mod Podged on, but I'm just taking a tiny little bit of antiquing wax and thinning it out with water. But the tissue paper I just have Mod Podged on here. It actually came, I bought something at Paper Source, and they have beautiful tissue paper that they give you when they wrap something up for you. And it has those dragonflies on it, or those little insects. And I just thought it was a pretty base. I tend to keep tissue paper because something like this I just think is cool. So yeah, just using a little bit of antiquing wax and thinning it out with water. Again, my Mod Podge tissue paper is completely dry before I do this step. There's a ton of wrinkles in it, and that was definitely on purpose because I really wanted to showcase a whole lot of texture and kind of add some age to the piece. You can see in that little center section, I didn't do anything. That's because I have a plan to put something in that space. So I have and I'm going to Mod Podge again on top of all of this antiquing wax as well. But I have this little pick I got at the end of a season at Michael's. I think right now at Michael's they're really getting rid of all of their summer and spring. I think it's on like a super sale. I bought it in previous years for like 80% off. And those are incredible times to stock up on things, especially like basic greenery. I do save when I clip off ends. That's why I wanted to show you guys. I save the stems for other projects. You'll see me do them over and over again. But I like this little bird's nest. He just looked a little bit too springy. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to dress it up. I'm going to add just a few little touches here and there on the wreath. I'm using my finger protectors because I'm hot gluing on a little tiny patch of burlap. Just to kind of go over a spot on the wreath or on the nest that I thought was kind of a little bit broken or busted. So that's what I'm doing. The plan is to have this little guy in there, this little bird kind of sitting in that little nest. And I'm going to make just a fabric rosette. I've made these before. And you just take a piece of fabric and you twist it around on your finger until it's the size you want. And then you tuck the ends under and just put a tiny dab of hot glue and push it down. These are so easy, and they add a lot of character to things. You can do them out of really most any material. But yeah, I'm just adding little scraps of greenery and things that I think are pretty, as well as a couple more fabric rosettes. I do have a branch right there from my yard. When we do trimming and stuff in the yard, I sometimes, if they're pretty branches or interesting shapes, I do save them. So I always have a couple things around in my craft room. So I just wanted to, fill that in on you guys because they sell sticks in the craft store. And I don't know necessarily why people always pay for them because they are free from your yard. If you're in an apartment and you don't have a yard, you can go on a walk and find tree trimmings places. They it's essentially free because people are throwing away tree trimming. So you can pick them up and take them home. So even if you're not in a home with a yard and you trim your own trees and things like that, you have options. So yeah, just adding a few sticks. Again, just trying to add some interest and different places for your eye to go when you're looking at this. And for me, I kind of try to take my time. Obviously, this video is sped up a bit, but I do take my time and think about how I want things to lay out. I'm not a quick crafter. Sometimes I ponder over things for several hours, and sometimes I just go for it. But take your time. If you're not sure, take a step back for a few minutes, see what you like or don't like about it, come back to it with a fresh eye. It really helps. So there is the drawer, which I ended up painting, which is some burnt umber paint, and I have it up on this Dollar Tree rack. I love using those little storage racks for drying anything. If you paint anything and you need air to go all around, that's a really good tip. So definitely pick those up from Dollar Tree. I'm taking a little piece of scrapbooking paper, and again, I'm just trying to add some visual interest here. So I'm going to take some Mod Podge and I'm going to add that piece on there. And the other thing I'm doing here is just kind of digging around in my little pieces that I have on my crafting table and trying to figure out where I want to go next and what I want to do next. So I'm just going to add this piece on. Again, I save almost all my scrapbook paper pieces, so unless they get just way too small. But if I really like the paper, like I really liked this particular paper, I wanted to use every single inch of it. So again, just trying to add some interest here. So I've got another piece and I'm going to add it to the side. And I know I said I had that really pretty tissue paper, but it's just one of those things. Over time, you start looking at a piece and you realize that you can do something a little different. Your mind goes a different way. So I'm just using some Mod Podge to add that to the side. Over time, you realize that a piece maybe is not necessarily coming together the way you wanted, or you have another idea and you get inspired. So just adding a little more Mod Podge on top of that scrapbook paper and kind of around there, especially getting on that handle, because I want to make sure that is sealed up, because over time picking that up by that handle could get a lot of wear and tear. So but yeah, that's what I have. I'm looking at it, and that's when I realized the bird is way too bright, and I kind of figured that. So I'm just taking some white chalk paint, and I'm going to start here and just try to blend it in. I'm using a very, very small amount of paint because I did not want to get paint all over the embellishments that I already added. So if you're doing something kind of to this degree, take it from me and don't add the embellishments yet. Try to paint your bird beforehand. So just some parchment color chalk paint on there. And then I realized this bird probably needed to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to use that burnt umber paint by Folk Art. That's, again, another staple that I always have in my craft stash, and you guys will see that I use that color over and over again. So I've got just a tiny bit on my little, palette that I use. And so since this parchment is not really dry yet and my brush is wet, you can see how the color is kind of faded in. And I realized that I really liked this effect. I thought it was really pretty. So I was just trying to be very careful, especially around that eye. And I didn't want it to bleed too much into like the chest and belly of the bird, because I wanted to keep it white and have the top part of the bird. Sorry, I'm not a bird expert, but the top part of this bird, I wanted to keep it darker, and the chest and belly of the bird a lot lighter. So I'm just kind of trying to blend this in and give it a little bit of character and fun and color, and again, make it more seasonally appropriate. And that's, I think, a great tip for you guys if you're doing things like shopping the end of season sales for florals. Again, this was like an Easter pick or a spring pick from Michael's. So you can find these picks and flowers and try to keep your eye out for these things and realize that paint really has the power to transform anything. So I'm just kind of turning it around and trying to decide, have I covered it enough? Does this guy look, dark enough? And again, trying to be very careful around these edges and not have it bleed over too much. But after a while, I really was pretty satisfied with it. I think it looks great. I think it was a really fun little project. Again, something unknown. I have no idea what this is used for, but very happy overall. Again, looking at it one more time and realizing that I could add a little flower pot. I got those from Dollar Tree. They usually have them out in the spring, and I just thought, well, it would be fun to add this little extra embellishment here. So I'm going to take a little scrap here and tie it around the handle. And again, I like kind of over the top stuff. So if you're more simplistic in your design, you may want to stop at any point along this way. But I like a little more embellishment and a little more fun. So that's what I have here, just a torn piece of drop cloth to add a little more interest over on that side. And just kind of dovetailing the ends and making it look pretty. But that's what I have. I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. I just wanted to put this again up for you guys to inspire you to try something new when you come across something at the thrift store. So I'm just going to paint this pot and I'm going to add it on next to the bird. And I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. And again, I hope this inspires you to try something new.